How to destroy America, the social fabric of it.
Wow.
And it's as though somebody just took America, the social fabric of America from the late 60s to today. And the timeline of the things that he said. It's pretty wicked. It's pretty powerful.
Wow.
Are we talking about Yuri?
If I were the Prince of Darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. Jeez. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames.
It sounds like a massive satanic agenda, if you ask me. It's like, I just want as much chaos as possible. But still, power for me, in a sense, because of divide and conquer.
If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Wow. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door.
Holy shit.
Within a decade,
protection.
I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter.
Again, it's just turning everything on its head, which is, the definition ultimately of, like, you see Satanists use like the upside down cross or the inverted pentagram. It's everything is upside down in the world. And many people even say, like, I feel like everything is just opposite of what we were told.
An egg and the symbol of Christmas, a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted, until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure.
It's like poetry.
In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
What year was that?
Oh, see, the devil. So I was right. It's kind of Satanism. Well, actually, the title of the video is If I Were the Devil. So, that makes perfect sense.
Holy shit.
1965.
That's
1965,
amazing.
okay.
65. Wow. April 3rd, 1965. Paul Harvey nailed it.
Paul Harvey. Who is Paul Harvey? Let's check this out. Paul Harvey, is this the guy? ABC News Radio. Interesting. It's very interesting. Myron, here's this guy here. There's another one, right? He was in the 40s, 50s, and he spoke up about all sorts of things. He did like a massive thing about communism and how there's like certain families and they like, there's a lot of this. This is not new, right? There's a lot. There's, watch, if I put this up here, right? I'm gonna go back here. Speech. I think there's one that says like 50 years ago. 50 years ago. Let's see, yep, see, the deep state. 50-year-old recording explains why the world is going crazy. And it's got a bunch of stuff in here. I watched this back a couple years ago. Kathleen, I love that man. So you know who that person is. That's crazy. And man's decision to further separate from God's recreation of himself leads him in a dysfunctional state of confusion. The mind becomes a burial ground for dead waste. Oof. Yeah. Yeah, confusion, not knowing who we are. Again, it's coming back to the sense of reality. And AI can help us with that. It can sort it from that. Governments, can, from their break apart, can help us connect with that, or also fall away from that, because there's so much chaos that builds up to its collapse. It's in those moments where we have to make the decision for ourselves. Some of the greatest catastrophes can be either the greatest lessons, or if we don't choose to take that lesson, it ends up destroying us, right? It's a lesson unto ourselves, and then to other people around us who see that we suffer for it. Look into Paul Harvey, Declaration of Independence. Interesting. We listened on Sunday nights, I believe. Okay. Europa, the Last Battle. I've heard about that. Yeah, so I'm going to pull up here in relation to what Joe Rogan just shared, right? So in our seminar on healthrevealed.org, you'll see Yuri Bezmenov, 4 stages of ideological subversion, right? So if people want to know, like, how do we get from, let's say, innocence, reality to tyranny? How does a nation go from moral, understanding self-ownership and things like self-defense, non-aggression, basic ideas that most people could understand and agree with, to tyranny where we don't know what to grapple with anymore, and there's hundreds of laws and no one knows what's right or wrong anymore. I mean, Yuri Bezmenov was an ex-KGB Soviet agent who basically talked about how there's 4 stages: demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. But he's not the only one who talked about it. And by the way, he said, you cannot change their mind even if you expose them to authentic information. It's not enough, right? Because once you change the morality, the perception, the way people are consuming information, take the heart out of it, right? The information is not going to matter at the end of the day. So he says proof will not be effective. And so it's a demoralization. That's how important morality is. And Aldous Huxley even said a really efficient totalitarian state would be one in which they love their servitude. He even said infant conditioning, narco-hypnosis are more efficient than clubs and prisons. So this is where we're at, because people will also tell me to say, Corey, there's no violence, there's no coercion. This system is voluntary. This is what they want people to think, so that way they are controlled. And that is the reality of the matter. The systems have been changing the terms, they've been changing the way that they go about the very same system that has been upheld for thousands of years. And if you don't think so, I did my whole recent video presentation talking about the most important history video for humankind. And that's not an understatement, right? I made this video and, a whole whiteboard, and I show all these studies and quotes and stuff. And this is like 50 minutes. I thought I was going to do a video. It's like, it's a 10-minute video. I made a small whiteboard. I'm just going to show some papers. It ended up being 50 minutes. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I had to make a short version that's 7 minutes. And it's like, even then, I barely cover the surface of the nature of the system that we're under. And this is not, by the way, the only predictions that we have here. If you look at Toynbee as well, right, a study of history, every civilization goes through a genesis, growth, time of troubles, universal state, and then disintegration, and then the cycle repeats. And the same thing here with the Tytler cycle, which is around 200 to 250 years, where, people are searching for meaning, and then, now we got it, we're free, and then, this is mine, and then it goes back into complacency, and people are trustworthy, and then it goes into dependence, back into bondage, and then people are looking to a new faith. So all sorts of different faiths are coming out of the woodworks, whether it's faith in flat earth or paperwork or AI or one select solution or one select person or certain ideology. People are attaching to the things that are ultimately going to enslave them as long as they're never themselves and they are not free inside their own head. And that is a summary of history, or at least the psychology of history in a nutshell. Infinite ether energy. That's right. And, there's plenty of resources out there for people who want it. It's just a matter of, again, if they want it. And I said that people are not necessarily going to look into it. So, kudos to Joe Rogan for featuring stuff like that. But it's one to also share a problem and another to share a solution, right? And is he mobilizing his audience to do something about it and not just become like, oh my gosh, unaware and upset? There has to be something done with that energy where it's not just contracted into negativity.